Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Sue.
Thank you. So for those watching and for us, perfect opening, let us all declare, I am open to the truth and light of who I am. Together. I am open to the truth and light of who I am. So it's very hard for me these days to separate spirituality from what goes on in the world. As you may have noticed, there's always something going on in the world. And so for starters, I would like to take just a moment for all of us here and those watching to know the truth that whatever ICE is doing in raiding big cities throughout our nation, picking up immigrants, right here and right now, just take a moment, go within yourself and know that ultimately and infinitely there is harmony, there is peace, there is goodness. Just do that in your own way, just to draw attention to something greater than what we're presently looking at. That's really all it takes to draw our attention inward and away from what's going on in the world. And you know, there's certainly evidence that whatever has been mulling and stirring within consciousness, personally and collectively, is exactly what we're seeing now, even as I speak, and we're all here together. Barry is whisking its way through Louisiana, and people are experiencing the aftermath of that. My hometown last night, Broadway went dark. But the best part of that was, did you hear the celebratory noises and shouts and applause and screams that went on the minute the lights came on? So we're a unique species. We embrace the paradox of having this divine, essential, fundamental, changeless, permanent reality of wholeness, of harmony, of grace, of goodness, of spontaneity, and definitely of creatively bringing our life to a point that has something meaningful to offer, not just to ourselves, but to everybody else, that has somehow a greater purpose in lifting consciousness, because what we're looking at now is where our consciousness has brought us up to this point. We don't like to admit that. We don't like to be accountable for the fact that really we are creative because thought is creative and we're always thinking. And so for that reason, it behooves us to follow the instruction of so many saints and scholars and teachers and philosophers, such as the founder of Science of Mind, Dr. Ernest Holmes, who said, to learn how to think is to learn how to live. And indeed, we are creative because our thought is available to us in any given moment. And so as this goes on around us, there's a call for people of all ages, at all stages, multi-generational. The call is put through from within each of us to truly ask, what if? What if you really are divine? What if you really have within yourself, despite everything that may be going on in your body, in your personal life, and in the life that you see as your direct experience, what if there still is something that is available to be harnessed and to be called forth to evoke a greater idea that really is all that any infinite way of approaching life calls us to, and that is a greater way of perceiving an idea. Because you know and I know there are two creations. The first one happens in our mind, in our awareness of whoever I think I am being. And the second is what shows up as a direct result of who I believe I am. So although I haven't seen it, I was reading a wonderful commentary on the movie Yesterday. Anybody see it? Oh, good, then I can tell you, oh, darn, somebody saw it, so I've got to keep it straight. Well, apparently the story is that somehow experiencing an alternate reality, a young man wakes up to realize he's the only one who's aware of the Beatles and their music. And so that being the case, however he gets there, he decides, okay, I'll be the one that is the originator of the Beatles' music. And off he goes, and indeed is the only one who now brings forth the amazement that people meet this wonderful discovery of the Beatles. And so it started me thinking about, well, what if you and I suddenly woke up today, we don't have to wait till tomorrow, right here, right now, in this atmosphere of sharing a more uplifted level of consciousness? What if we woke up and realized personally, oh my God, I'm the only one that realizes I'm divine? What would that prod me to do, to be, to think, to act, to express, to bring to life? What if I indeed am the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature? I am Atman, I am Brahma. I am that radiant spirit, that universal mind, that unconditional divine love. What if it's me? I'm the whole enchilada. How do I relate? How do I now perceive my life from a higher vantage point? How do I come into a deeper realization that, wow, I can't be coasting along on yesterday's laurels. There's something now that's being called upon within me, and I have no doubt in my own heart that that would mean I have to convey that. I have to bring that forth to someone else. I have to start where I am in my life, in my family, in the way that I navigate in my everyday world, because I'm partial to taking my leisure time, having a little chai or so at Starbucks. I figured, well, my God, I could start there. I could just pop in and I could start spreading the good news, not in an offensive way of conversion or for doing anything other than asserting my new reality, my new perception of life, that I am infinite and I am here to present that in a finite way through everything I think, say, feel, and do. So it's a wonderful way to start moving ourselves off what we're so familiar with. We are such human creatures of pattern and habit. And to begin to see things from knowing all of what's happening in the world today is no accident. It hasn't happened, as that famous statement goes, out of the blue. It has been the representation of a cumulative array of thoughts, feelings, beliefs of all civilization from all time. The best of thought, from the best of thinkers, and the lowest level of thought from thinkers who had not yet discovered the essence of who and what they are. And so it's the call to rise. I read a great ancient story that's been interpreted in many different ways. And it goes like this, and it bears to the truth of, is it easier for me sometimes to put on the false facade and to keep the pretense going? Or can I really stand in truth when it is most uncomfortable and causes me my own personal distress and maybe disturbs the people around me? And here's how the story goes. Truth and the lie took a walk together one day, and it was a lovely summer's day. And as they were wandering in the beautiful village countryside, they saw a fabulous well, and the water was sparkling. It was really an invitation. And so the lie said to the truth, oh, we're together, we're sharing some time together. How about we now take a little dip in the refreshing water? And the truth was somewhat hesitant about even being in a situation such as it was with its paradoxical twin, so to speak. And it said, well, let me test the waters a little bit. Put his foot in the water, her foot, the foot in the water. And it was lovely, it was refreshing, it was clear, it was cool, it was wonderful. And so they agreed. And so the lie said, there's only one thing though. I mean, we can't be wandering in this beautiful well of water in our clothes. Let's take off our clothes. And so, okay, truth agreed. And they both went into the well and were just luxuriating the refreshing, cool waters. bringing the waters of eternal life, truth is thinking to itself, into the outer manifestation of these cooling waters, refreshing the body as well as the mind and the spirit. All of a sudden, the lie leaps up out of the well, grabs the clothes of truth, and whisks himself off to the village, now presenting himself as the truth. And of course, because he was elegantly and cleanly and crisply dressed as the truth would be, everyone was just welcoming and warmly inviting him into their homes and conversing with him. Meanwhile, the truth leaps up after him and goes chasing naked through the streets, wanting to reclaim his clothes, because he had initially looked at the lie's clothes lying at the ground at the foot of the well, and had a choice in that moment. Well, I could put on these clothes and go explain things to people. And the truth thought, no, I will not sacrifice my soul and the very essence of my being for the falsity. I will remain the naked truth. Goes into town, and of course people ridicule while the truth is trying to say, don't you recognize me? Don't be fooled just because I temporarily took my garments off. I'm still the very essence of who I am. And no one believes the truth, ignores, and is favored than lie, which is more appropriately and pleasantly appearing. And so that's the moral for us. How much will I stand naked in the truth, perhaps without any support from anything or anyone other than the ultimate reality of knowing who and what I am, and the insistence upon standing in that glow, in that light, even though I am so transparent. Now, the thing that I found very interesting is a painting that appears about the truth emerging from the well. It goes back to a painter in France from 1896. So here's the telling question. Was the truth in the form of the feminine or the masculine? What do you think? Everybody watching, contemplate that. How did the truth appear? It appeared as the feminine. And that is because the feminine is the creative nature. We embrace the masculine, yet that part is the assertive, the thinking, the rational, the judging, the evaluating, the discerning part of our mind, while the feminine is that soul. Just in science of mind, technical learning, we know that the circle personifying the infinite, unchanging, unbroken circle of life still has different functions. There's the conscious mind. I think, I rationalize, I evaluate, I judge. That's the masculine. The minute that perception, that strong energy of what I really am convinced about, drops into the hidden part that emerges naked from the well, that is the creative soul of the universe. And the more that I think we're all discovering, it's a feeling mechanism. It's not a thinking mechanism. It has to have the coordination and the unification of thought plus feeling in order to truly create that heaven on earth. So for me, it's a powerful metaphor for the degree to which I am willing, insistent upon, absolutely relying upon the divine principle, particularly in today's times, when it's so easy to get in the polarization. It's so easy to get into the divisiveness. It's so easy to take sides, even the sides of quote unquote righteous indignation, the side of saying, well, I stand for something better. Well, I don't stand for something better if what I'm stating still comes from a consciousness of animosity, resistance, and fear. So here we all are, wherever we each are in this minute, at home, at work, in our places of worship, of all faiths, of all traditions, and how much of this is being discussed. You know, religion and politics has always been a no-no, you know, church and state. The stand that we, particularly from the religious science of mind tradition, have been is like, in a world that's round, it doesn't make sense to take sides. And so for that reason alone, it's standing in that, just like my hand is shown here. There's the palm, which is, let's say, the inner, the divine, and there's the outer part of my hand, which is the human expression. I can be showing one or the other. I can be the lie dressed as the truth, or I can go naked as the truth, or I can don the garments of the lie and show up. But when I stand in the middle, just balanced, I'm weaving the divine from my being into the expression of my human nature. And I'm allowing for that gap and that seeming separation to close up ever more fully. When I originally thought about today's talk, I was thinking about the mind that is the universal intelligence of life itself. Of course, knows no age, no time, no space, no limitation. It only knows that it is endless and timeless and boundless and limitless and holds all knowing. And as much of that as we desire and choose to access is as much as what shows up. So that we have heaven, symbolically and metaphysically designated as the highest thoughts, that which represents the consciousness of the absolute, the unconditioned, the changeless, God, spirit, again, mind, Buddha nature. Or, on the other hand, I can be choosing to take the stand of the popular opinion, and I can get all involved. Regardless of what my politics are, I can be just as strongly against while stating to be for something greater. Because here again, it's that subjective feeling nature that tells all. You know, in working with people now in being a minister of religious science for over 34 years, it's become apparent to me that the only struggle we ever really have, as has been stated throughout the ages, is the moments when I forget consciously that I am one with this creative mind, this all-knowingness, and this unconditioned and unconditional love, compassion, understanding, loving kindness, and generosity of spirit that wants to help. You know, it's such an irony that we see the lights go off and we're in the darkness symbolically, and we're groping. Personally, we have to grope to find our own way because we can't help anybody else until we first do that. And yet when the lights go on, suddenly there's unity. There's that one sense of gratitude and appreciation, and we see it, how everybody rushes to the aid of some disaster, some chaos. And then the moment it's fleeting, it goes. You can barely remember what was it that was running the headlines last week, last month, and yet the prevailing cause at the innermost level, where the infinite invisible rests, is still available, still there, and yet that conscious choice. Do I put on the false garments and carry on with my mask, my pretense, my persona, letting the world think this is the life I'm living? All we have to do is go on Facebook. Excuse me, I had to do that, it was bugging me. You know, according to Facebook, all we see mostly are the travels and the journeys and the celebration of the birthdays, and this is the life I want you to think I'm living, and the beauty. And of course, I don't really pay attention to the rest of it, but I'm sure there's the other side, the argumentative, combative, angry, violent conversations that insist on taking their stand in being right. And then there's the truth. There's that which still rests in its quiet place, not bursting through, but waiting for the invitation for you and I to consciously declare, I am ready, I am willing, I am accessible and available to bring the divine nature, to stand in my naked truth and to speak for it, to it, of it, as it, in everything that I do. And now I open that creative mind to a greater creative way of living that shows me what is it that I am called upon to do. to bring a new light, to bring a new and greater idea, and to put feet to that. I was reading another fabulous article this week about Pablo Casal. You know, we have Yo-Yo Ma, but before him in the 19th century, one of the greatest, if not some believe the greatest cellist and conductor, Pablo Casal, in the Spanish tradition. And that creative intelligence that came through by means of him is what really all metaphysical teachers and authors have told us, that that is the innate creative genius of the mind of God that abides within all of us. So that was, as he described it, that was my talent. My genius was God-given. And that really is the truth. And yet all of this great truth, all of this genius, all of this capability to serve ourselves in a meaningful way and bring a gift to humanity is the gift of the divine. What we do with it, the talents that we choose consciously to tap into and access, are what we give to life. We've already been gifted with everything that is. And so he was additionally a fighter for justice, for that which deserved, and won the Presidential Medal and also a UN Peace Medal. His life was dedicated to this. And the thing that was so interesting, he talked a lot about age, because he passed away just a few weeks short of his 97th birthday. And when he was 90, he first started collaborating on a book that's called, I think it's called The Joy of Living or something. It's a classic. It's in fact a collector's item. And on the website that I was reading, you can only access it at the public library unless you want to pay several $100s for it. But it described his whole thinking, which was so steeped in knowing that he had a gift, and he therefore had a responsibility not to just serve himself in enjoying, which he did, the music that he shared, and then offering it to people, but that's why that creative mind and his desire to live that mind creatively necessitated he then seek to correct injustices in the world of all faiths, of all traditions, in all countries, and always commented that the aging process is only part of the process we either cooperate with or we discard it as an old belief system and find the new ways to continue to be fascinated and inspired and to look toward what it is that God, that infinite, timeless, spaceless, birthless, eternal youth wants to next create by means of you and by means of me. And so that's the challenge, that's the chalice of truth, that I invite all of us to step up out of the well in our nakedness, regardless of how the lie is flitting around. I thought to myself, yeah, and here we are, fake news. I mean, how true is it that in the infinite scheme of things, in that first absolute cause that Holmes and others talked about, that which emerges in its purity, in its perfection, in its wholeness, is unhampered and unhindered by anything that's going on out there. It simply is taking its direct impress of the energy of our own thought as our determination as to where we go, what we do, how we think, and what we're bringing to the game. And so right here where each of us is, regardless of age, stage, season, sexual preferences, color, all of that is only the ways that we uniquely emerge and tell the truth of who we are. As Rip, our musician, said, let's open up to the light, the life, the love, and the law of life, which takes us at our word. It knows what's going on by the means with which I declare I am an infinite being designed to bring my gifts to the family of the earth in a very practical, pragmatic, creative way that represents the genius of God, mind, intelligence, as me, as you, as all. And that's the way it really is. Yay!